Hello, everyone, and welcome back to SkateProud chat. Today we will have Jeremy Abbott, USA Olympic figure skater. He's four times national champion, four continents bronze medalist, and as well is the 2008 Grand Prix final champion. Jeremy participated in two Olympics in Vancouver 2010 and in Sochi 2014. So I'm going to Jeremy to join the chat, and here you are.
Hi,
Hi, welcome.
thank you. Thank you for having me. How's
How are
everything
you
going?
doing?
I'm well. And yourself?
Not bad.
Good.
Actually, these first months were a little bit tough, like everybody, but I think I'm getting more positive
hmm
about it. Better weather. So, how about you?
Uh, Very much the same. I think at the beginning I was like, I've just been going so much, like just trying to find work and work and work and constantly like keep myself busy, and immersed and like distracted, I guess. But then like the first 3 weeks, I just stopped, like full stop. I was like vacation, and then that got old after after a couple of weeks, and so I like started to kind of pull my life back together and like start to organize things, and then um, start to mobilize just for my life, and then um, yeah, just
So, do you have
uh,
like any like plans at the moment? Are you like working on something?
at the moment, no. Well, just started to, because obviously rinks are slowly starting to open. So we have to think about choreography for next season. So I've just been like listening to music and talking with my students, and getting everything starting to organized, and taking the first steps towards the next step.
Hmm.
Because rinks aren't like fully open, so it's just trying to kind of figure out how we can do this safely, how we can do it in an appropriate time, and one that's not gonna like put anybody in a bad situation, um, because
Yeah, in a
we are
sense.
still in the middle of like this pandemic and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So, at the moment, you are coaching and choreographing in
Mm.
Michigan, you said.
I'm in Michigan. Well, so I don't live anywhere at the moment. I
Great.
in Sep Yeah, in September, I moved out of my apartment in Michigan, right before I did the Rock the Rink tour in Canada. Just because I hadn't been home in 6 months, and I wasn't going to be home for another 6 months. And I was like, well, I don't want to pay for an apartment that I'm not living in. So I gave up my apartment, and I was living on the road. And I had planned out my whole spring up until right about now. And I was assisting Yuka with a show that she was choreographing. So I came to Michigan. Um, and as soon as I got here, our rink shut down, everything shut down. And so I've been living with Yuka for 3 months now.
Oh, wow.
So
Actually,
I'm,
I saw Yuka here in Toronto, and I think she mentioned you guys were preparing this show in Japan and all
mhm.
that. Yeah, it's unfortunate that, of course, everything's been canceled.
Yeah, it is. But I'm obviously we don't know what the world's going to look like next year. But at the moment, it's rescheduled for a year from now, and um, so it's kind of, there's something oddly satisfying about having like something on the books like a year from now. You're like, oh, I have work. Not everything has has completely ended and stopped, but
Yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah.
and it and it gives us more time to like flesh out ideas and flesh out details, and I think it'll be good.
Yeah. Let's try to be positive, and I'm sure this will get back to normal at some point. So, talking about your skating career, um, you've accomplished really big goals. You're four times national champion for the USA, and you've been to two Olympics. And but it's been a while that you retired,
hmm
and you've been still on the ice doing a lot of shows, correct?
hmm
Like,
Yes. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of shows. been staying busy and still performing. So there's lots of opportunity, like still, well, there was, to see skating and to see my skating, and yeah, I've managed to keep really busy um, post amateur retirement, which has been, it's kind of like you continue the hustle of the competitive circuit, because like, you're still competing for jobs and you're still competing in a way. Um, but it's just a different sort of hustle, and it's been fun. It's been fun to just get to perform, because that's all I wanted to do. Like I wanted to be a successful skater in whatever terms that meant, so that I could do shows, so that I could perform, so that I could be with, like, in Stars on Ice, and tour the world. Like that's what my Olympic dream was
Okay.
to have that post career. So I feel very, very lucky that have found a way to do that.
Yeah. It's interesting. And how will you describe like your competitive career versus your show career? And like, of course, it's a very different world. And like, how much are you enjoying now shows compared to when you were competing? And like, what's the difference? Adrenaline, nervous, and all that, and like the way you experience it.
Uh, I feel like I've learned more about myself as a performer, and in a certain sense, a competitor, as a professional, than when I was competing. Because like when I was competing, everything is just constantly going, and it's hard to kind of take some time to stop and fully reflect on who you are and how you function, because it's like once you kind of, and I'm sure once you kind of start doing international competition and you kind of get involved in the circuit, it's like just this, uh it feels a bit like you're a hamster on a wheel, and you just have to go and go and go and go and go, and you're training, and you're doing your like off ice dance and off ice weights, and like everything kind of plugged in, and you just start running like once you like get thrown into this system. And it's hard to kind of take a step back and look at yourself from an outside perspective. Like it's very insular, and you're very much like in a bubble. So it's hard to kind of take a step outside of yourself and look at things from a different perspective. And as a professional, I get the opportunity to do that constantly, and I feel like I've learned more about how I perform, and how um, I can be successful in the way that or the most impactful when I perform in the way that I want to be. And it's like I wish I could go back 12 years and take everything I've learned and put it like into my competitive career. Because I think I'd be a better athlete having the knowledge that I have now. But it's exciting, and it's very freeing, and I've gotten to feel more myself in these past couple of years than I ever have, and I get to explore different sides of myself without like a fear of consequence of poor judgment or poor placement. And um, I just have like less fear of failing, and I think that's been the most um, freeing thing, is that I kind of finally figured out, like, it's okay to make mistakes, and you don't have to be perfect every time. And then once you kind of give yourself the permission to make mistakes, you make fewer mistakes, because like you're not so like bound up by the fear of making one, that it's like, okay, well, I have the opportunity to make mistakes, and I'm allowed to make mistakes, and if I make a mistake, I make a mistake. And then kind of from there, it opens up a lot of doors kind of within yourself, because you're no longer so confined into feeling like you have to be perfect.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories, and yeah, a lot of people mention that shows gives them a different perspective, and they they learn a lot. I feel like the competitive world is very stressful sometimes,
Hmm.
and as you said, it's like we're nonstop, and sometimes we forget about enjoying it a little bit,
Yeah.
and it's more like we're so focused on that goal versus the shows you are like performing, you're
Hmm.
enjoying that show. So it is true, it's about it will be amazing to like have that knowledge of the shows and how we experience it, how we enjoy the public taking it into this competition, right?
Hmm.
So you've been, as I said before, 4 times national champion in the USA, a very big country in this sport, and I want to hear like how did that feel, because I know your nationals are like huge. You
Hmm.
guys are a lot of competitors. There's a big crowd, big stadium, and like um, most of us as other figure skaters that come from smaller countries, we only experience this when we go to these international big events such as Europeans for continents or worlds or
Hmm.
Olympics. But for you guys, it's like your nationals is almost like a world championships, like
Yeah.
it's quite interesting. So how is that how is that experience in your own country with fellow competitors from your country and becoming 4 times national champion?
Um, yeah, US Nationals is very different than other events, and especially other national championships. It's a very big scale event. We have a lot of we have big arena. We perform in big arenas with lots of audience, and there's a lot of pressure on it because when I was competing, there wasn't kind of like a system built up to qualify for the world championships in any other way than nationals. So it's like you had one shot. Like if you wanted to go to Olympics, if you wanted to go to Worlds, if you wanted to go to four continents, you had one opportunity. And you feel that pressure as an athlete. And in my career, it was either I won or I didn't qualify. Like if I was if I was like good but not amazing, I would come fourth and I wouldn't qualify because the other boys would be amazing. So like just being good at the US championships isn't good enough. Um, and it kind of they have changed the qualification system since I stopped, where they take into account worlds and the Grand Prix series and your placements throughout the whole entire season, um, which I think is great because it takes a little bit of pressure off of the championships, and you can kind of start to build the trajectory of your season a little differently, and not have to peak at the U.S. championships, and you can kind of create that slope going upwards to hopefully peak at the world championships. And I think that's great, because I mean anyone that watched my career was like U.S. championships was like my pinnacle, and then from there it would just kind of drop. um, I was like tired at that point of the season, man.
Probably,
uh,
yeah.
but no, it was I love nationals. It was always my favorite competition. I always felt so supported there, and there was just a different type of energy that I never felt at Worlds. I've never felt at Olympics. I've never felt anywhere else. There's just a certain energy at the U.S. Championships um, that I really, for whatever reason, thrived on. And I like have a really soft spot for that in my heart. And even actually after I've been finished, I've gone back just to watch as a spectator, and I still feel it. I still feel as a spectator that there's just a different energy about U.S. nationals, that it is really really special. And um, yeah, I don't know. I miss, like, when I think about competing, like I miss that feeling specifically, from that competition.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to hear that because we don't really know this, and but as I've watched other times, yeah, I know it seems like a huge competition and quite a lot of pressure,
Mm.
and yeah, crowd seems amazing, and it's in your own country, so yeah, it's quite interesting. So out of the 4 championships that you won, your nationals,
Hmm.
which one will you take with you as your favorite?
Oh, um, They are all special for different reasons. The first time is exciting because it's the first time. Um, but honestly, the first time I won was my least favorite because it was the worst I skated out of all four of them. Um, but
But it was
uh,
special.
it was, yeah, because it's still the first time, and it's all new, and you kind of set a goal and you achieve it for the first time, and that's really like it's really special. It's really exciting. The second time I qualified for Vancouver Olympics, and that was, another dream come true. And that was probably the best out of all four of them that I had skated. I don't think I had a hair out of place. Um,
That's quite funny.
and then the third, the third was really special because I felt, I'm gonna say, I don't know, the fourth, obviously I qualified for my second Olympics, but I think the third is maybe my favorite, because that was the year that I really just felt like I took full control of my skating and what I wanted to say on the ice. And I just like that was the year that I decided that I was going to say what I wanted to say and not worry about how it was received kind of by the judges. I mean, there's always going to be that little bit like in the back, the competitive aspect, or in the back of your head, you're like, well, they have to like it because I want to win. Um, but it was really the first time that I was like, you know what? I don't care if people don't like my music. I don't care if people don't like what I have to say. Like, this is what I want to say. This is how I want to skate. This is the music I want to skate to, and this is how I want to do it. And just kind of having that conviction um, about my own skating, and then having it pay off was really thrilling. So I think I'm gonna go with the third one.
That's cool. Yeah. I yeah, you as a skater have a very special, how would you say, way to skate, and it's you're one of my skaters that I've always looked up to, and
Oh,
like
thank you.
yeah, and like choreography and like skating skills, the way you flow on the ice, and it's quite interesting because it's true. I did notice change in the last years of your career. I probably, as you're saying, and probably it's the moment where you can consider that you were like more free and more yourself,
Hmm.
and you decided to take ownership of what you are like you want to perform to, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's part of a career that is maturing as a skater, that we ended up being more ourselves and putting out there, picking up the music we want to skate, and like being more on top of what we want to do.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's quite interesting what you're saying. um so you competed your first Olympics. How old were you then? In
24.
24.
Yeah, I was 24 at my first.
And yeah, and then you were again national champion in the season 2013-14
Hmm.
for Sochi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you skated one last season after that.
Yes,
That's
I did. Yeah, I was like, I had kept saying that I was going to be done after the 2014 season, and I felt like at Worlds I had gotten so close to winning a medal that I was like, oh, I'm going to keep this momentum, and I'm going to come back one more year, and I'm going to win my world medal, and then I'm going to just move on. But obviously things didn't work out that way. Um, I think I came in fifth at every single competition I entered that year. So nowhere near a world medal. Um, but, you know, part of me was like, oh, that was such a terrible idea. You should have just been done after 14. But actually, I think
But you never know.
2000, of course. But there was something really, I'm like my first reaction always, oh, that was such a dumb move. You should have just been done. But then I look back, and there were moments from that season that I'm so grateful for and glad that I didn't move on. Um, my my father actually passed away right before our like 2 weeks before our nationals, in 2015, and prior to him passing, U.S. Figure Skating was doing a collaboration with the North Carolina School for the Arts, and they had asked if I would perform to a live piece of music at the gala after the competition, and I was really honored, and I had picked a piece of music and worked with the school and the conductor to choose the piece of music and um, how, like, what we wanted to do, and how we wanted to present it. And then after my father passed, I actually took that piece, and I made it into a tribute to him. And it was like about the 5 stages of grieving. And, I got to perform this at my last US championships for my father with live music. And it was just like, it was one of the most honest and special moments in my skating career. And I'm really glad that I got to say goodbye to my father in such a meaningful way, and that I got to share it with people. So when I look back, like, if I hadn't done that season, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. Um, I wouldn't have gotten that gift, I guess, to be able to honor my dad and then to say goodbye in the best terms that I could.
That is such a beautiful story, and yeah, it's probably the best way you could say goodbye to your father and express yourself on the ice. I am going into these last seasons of skating. There was a lot of changes and a lot of like pushing towards the quad.
Mm.
We'll say, like, I feel like in the USA everybody was, like trying to get that quad, and that's one of the things you changed, and you went into Sochi with the quad. And so what was the reason why, like, because you as a figure skater, you were like already achieving all those big goals without the quad, but like also when you went to Sochi, then like all these last seasons, at nationals you became that season national champion. And then what was the reason why you were pushing so much for that quad? Like, what will that make a change?
Um, I mean, I could do. When did I had been able to do a quad since like 2008,
Yes.
2008. Um, and I had been doing it in competition, and I did it at a few worlds, I did it at a few Grand Prix, but like it was never really consistent. But with Sochi being my last opportunity, I really wanted to try to make it as consistent as I could, have it in both programs so that I could give myself the best opportunity to medal at the Olympics, because I felt like I had if I could do that, if I could put it in my short and long and be consistent and skate clean programs, I felt like I legitimately had an opportunity to medal. So I really was pushing for that, because it was like there's no more chances. Like, this is it. This is the last chance you get. So either put it all in and put it all out there and take the risk and push yourself to do things that you haven't done, or don't do it. Um, and so I really pushed myself to try to be the best that I could with the highest technical content that I could have, while still being comfortable and consistent. And yeah, so
So
that
during
was
those nationals before Sochi, you were, I don't really remember. Did you do the quad at nationals in the USA
yeah, I did it
in both
in both
solos?
programs. I
Yeah.
landed it. Yeah, I did it in the short and the long. Um,
So let's say for that season, like, you were already planning to have it in both solos, and like uh, not many other skaters were like doing the quad. That at like it was kind of like in the USA there was not many skaters like pushing for the quad at the moment, and then you were like putting in both solos, and then that was your goal for the Olympics as well.
mhm. Yeah, I think. Um, there was a lot behind that decision. I mean, we had someone like Max Aaron who was doing a quad pretty consistently, and Richard Dornbush, and there were a few men in the U.S. that were doing a quad, and I knew I had to compete against them, and I knew I had to beat them to qualify for the Olympics. And I think the biggest thing was like uh, there was a part of me that kind of wanted to play it safe just to qualify and then put everything out there at the games. But my coaches really felt like if you play it safe and let's say you come second, like you may not get sent. Like if you go to nationals, the only guarantee you have to go to the Olympics is by winning. Um, and so that was kind of the mentality, like put it all out there, go big or go home. And it worked at the championships, and then it had a different result at the Olympics, as we all know. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still like,
So at that point, would you say the system did already change in the USA national championships? Like, as you said, either you won or you maybe were not going to be sent because it was based on all the competitions throughout the season, like Grand Prix and all that.
uh, yeah. So for Olympics, we're kind of told like, and I actually that's even changed. I believe the qualification system has changed quite a bit in the U.S. But it used to be like you were guaranteed a spot by being national champion, and then after that there was a panel that would select the rest of the skaters. And honestly, it was usually like kind of in order, but occasionally, and especially as we saw in Sochi, Ashley Wagner came fourth and qualified for Olympics over Mirai.
Yes.
Um, so there was a likelihood that I could have come second and had somebody behind me sent. So I didn't want to take that chance, and I wanted to make sure that I had my spot, and there was not going to be a question that I didn't have that spot.
It makes sense. Yeah. So no, I mean it
Yeah,
is
that makes
quite
sense.
interesting because it's a lot of the skaters in the USA, and you guys are like all of you like very competitive and like right there.
Hmm.
So it's as you said, you gotta save that spot and to make it happen to go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
Um, so I was researching a little bit about you, and there's not much about your personal life.
Yeah.
And like you probably like never really shared anything of your private life and like um but I mean today you're here because you are supporting this cause, Skate Proud, the movement, the
Mm.
community, and um I would like you to tell us like what how will you identify yourself within this community, and why is it that you want to support it, and like tell us about you because we have not really find much about you and your private life, so what do you want to share with us?
Um, I mean, you asked me, you said that you were starting this, and you asked if I would be willing to be interviewed, and I was like very on board. I think I have a lot of wonderful friends who are starting different initiatives to really be beacons of light in the world and in the community in different communities. And um, I'm so inspired by all of you guys doing doing things that can make an impact and do such good that I just wanted to support in any way that I could. And in this instance, it's an opportunity for I guess for me to tell my story and to explain a bit about myself. But I'm a white cisgendered gay man, and I never really talked about it in public or not in public, but like I've never made like a public declaration um, to like a magazine or to a newspaper or anything. I anyone like I very open about it, and I've never like not never. There was plenty of time that I hid it, that I was very closeted. But you know, anybody who knows me and who has spent any amount of time with me knows, and I'm not shy about it.
So that's what I wanted to ask you about, because um, all of us that we are friends of you, we know like your closest circle,
Mhm.
like you've never had to like, hit these, and like you were really open about it with your closest friends, family throughout your life.
Mhm.
But as you said, you never had a moment, like a coming out story we that you publicly wanted to share, or
Yeah.
like decided to do it. But
Mhm.
this is I want to ask you, like, what could be like the reason why, like, throughout all these years as a competitive skater, well, I mean, you were really reserved in your personal life, in your, and you were not really sharing much about yourself. But like, is there something deeper in that? It was like, it's like about pressure, or like the competitive side, like maybe things that could affect your competitive career if you wanted to share this part of yourself, like publicly, if you wanted to speak out about it. And like, is there something that kind of like stopped you to publicly be open and about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, lots of things. It wasn't any just one thing, and you know, I'm not. The biggest thing was just fear, honestly, and it wasn't fear of like placement or failure. I mean, there was a part of me that was worried that it might have some effect on um, you know, my fans, or on judging to a degree. You know, there was a little bit in the back of my mind that did think that. Um, but you know, of course, someone's not really a fan if they can't accept all of me and everything that I have to give.
Yeah,
Um, so I've come to learn that obviously over time. Um, but I think just it was just a lot of fear in many different aspects. You know, I was bullied a lot as a kid, and I think that's a common thing that you've been finding through all of your talks.
yeah,
And you know, I was called fag, faggot, queer, all of these things before I knew what they meant, before I even knew what sexuality was. And you know, so it kind of became ingrained that like that's bad, and like I didn't know what it meant, but I was like, whatever that is clearly it's meant to be bad because people are using it to hurt me. Um,
exactly.
and then, you know, I kind of grew up and realized, oh, I am that thing. But then I didn't want to be that thing because it like it caused me pain as a child, and like some trauma. And so then I spent a lot of time trying to convince myself that I wasn't this thing. And obviously, it's not a thing. Like I'm a human being, but uh, so you know, I tried to convince myself that I was the exception, and that I wasn't a gay figure skater, and that I was going to be straight, and I was going to date women, and I was going to get married and have children and all of this stuff. And I tried really hard, and then it became painfully obvious that I couldn't do that. Um, and you know, I slowly started to accept it, but it took me a long time, and it took me a long time to accept it for myself. Um, and it took me even longer to just be comfortable with myself. Like I'm still really trying at 35. I just turned 35 last week, and I'm still trying to figure out who I am and who I want to be in this world and how I want to navigate it. And um, so it's hard to it's hard to accept. It's hard to ask people to accept you when you don't fully accept yourself, I think.
Yeah, it's
Um,
a process. And
yeah.
as you said, there's a lot going on. It's a self-acceptance process that we
Hmm.
have to go through. And with all this negativity and all that happens when you're a kid, when you're growing up as a figure skater, you're choosing a sport that goes against, what people think that you should do, and like then is the period when you're like accepting yourself or thinking, oh, this is wrong, this is, I don't want to be like that. but but yeah, things have changed a lot these
Oh
past
yeah.
years, I think, especially from and after Sochi, regarding sport, regarding athletes coming out, telling their stories. Even it doesn't matter if it's through their competitive career or even after, like you're doing right now, like you're telling your story, you're being
Hmm.
open about it. And so yeah, you struggle through different periods, and I wanted to focus on like the time when you were like competing at a high
Hmm.
level. Let's say you had a lot of pressure, you are 4 times national champion. Back in those years, there was no example of another figure skater that was out during the competitive career. There was no one that really did that at that moment.
Hmm.
And like and you so I wanted to ask you, like, how did the pressure affect you? Were you thinking about judges, like competitive results, and like sponsors and others that could have effect if you wanted to be open about it publicly?
Um, so here's the thing, like when I was competing, I I started skating from the time I was 2, and by the time I was 5, that was all I wanted to do. It was all I thought about. It was all I cared about. Like from 5 years old, like skating was it. Um, and I threw myself into skating completely. I educated myself in skating. Um, I immersed myself. Like all of my friends were in skating. I was figure skating. Like that's all that there was. And all of these things are going on within me as a person. But um, I wasn't educating myself about the world around me much. Um, and so a lot of my fear came from my own ignorance, not understanding the importance of um, visibility, and not understanding that um, just being just being visible in who I am can make such a big impact. I when I would think about it, I'd be like, I'm a figure skater, so nobody's going to be surprised. It's not going to have an impact. People are just going to be like, oh, it's just another gay figure skater, and roll their eyes. And so I'm thinking like me coming out is not going to affect anyone positively. It's not going to affect any change. So like, why do it? And then I would have thoughts that like I really want to do this, and I really want to come out. But then I would question like, well, why now, and what are the reasons? And it always seemed like either like very selfish or opportunistic, or like I never felt like I had
A
a
reason.
reason. I never felt like I had a reason. I felt like I would be doing it as an attention grab, or I would be doing it um, at a time when the focus needed to be on another event. Like I after Pulse, the shooting in Pulse, which was actually 4 years ago today, I believe. I wanted to stand in solidarity with my community, and I thought about like maybe this is a good time for me, but then I was like, no, this is going to distract um, from something that's far more important than me, and it's going to turn something that should be focused on into something about myself, and I didn't want to do that. Um, and so like every time I felt like I wanted to say something or I wanted to do it, it was always like just so wrong. It was never right. And I don't know. Now I feel I kind of understand the importance of visibility, and I understand that a big reason why I was so scared is because I didn't see anyone, I guess, like me in a sense. Growing up, Rudy Galindo was openly gay, and he was a national champion and a world bronze medalist. And then I came up with Johnny, who, even though he wasn't out, like, was very open with himself and who he was. And I had these examples, but I didn't feel like I connected with them necessarily. Um, I felt like I was a very different entity, a very different personality, and you know, I was like, I'm not like them. Uh, and so I don't know. I just like I never felt like I really had a place in a sense. Like I didn't see. I don't
As you
know.
said,
Like we come
you
in
didn't find the reasons,
like we are all
anything that
human, and we come in
clicked.
every like every personality type and every shape and size and form and color, and you know, like we are like such a rainbow, and there is no one way to be gay, and there's no one way to be queer, and there's no one way to be straight, and there's no one way to be an ally. Like, there's no one way for anything, and um, I don't know. I didn't see myself in the people that came before me, and so that kind of created some fear. And then I was like, well, there is importance in visibility and showing every different aspect and every different shape and every different type of human.
Yeah,
And you know, I understand the importance of that. And then, you know, me saying anything, I still don't think is going to have it isn't a big deal. But that's where we want to get to, where it's not a big deal, that we're all just human, and it doesn't matter. Like, there doesn't need to be a coming out. Like, I just am who I am, and that's great.
exactly.
And
But I feel by what you've been telling, um, there's a lot of like struggle that you've lived through in the part of accepting yourself, and I think that's been like a barrier for you
mm,
to, as you were saying, to find a moment or something that clicked to say, okay, now I'm free, I'm fully accepting myself, not just for me, not just for my circle, but for the public, out loud and open about it. You did not find that because everybody will have a different process, and you as I see you, maybe it's like the competition put a lot of pressure. There's a lot of things going on that probably made you have, like, a long process of like figuring out things and like accepting yourself, and even like a reason to click, to be like, okay, I want to talk about it, I want to speak about it, I want to be a role model, I want to be telling my story. The you I think that's where you kind of like did not find the right moment through your
mhm,
career. But obviously, I mean, your circle, your friends, your family, we all know, and we know you're part of the community, you support it, you support your other friends, other athletes, and like, this is like what's important to hear. All stories are different. Your story, but what you're telling me, it's, yeah, it's a lot of things going on through your career, or even since you were like growing up. As you said, you were bullied as well, and you had these struggles. So it is interesting to hear that we cope with this in a very different way, each of us,
mhm,
right? Not like, for example, for me and the story of Guillaume, I could relate a lot, and I
mhm,
was quite interested in all the things he said. But like, we have a different life, and we grow through this in a different way. So yeah, it's what I wanted to get is like, of course, you've like been at the top of such a big country with, different, like, there's a lot of like pressure, and so I wanted to hear if that affected you somehow. I wanted to see if like there was that part of the pressure of the competition and others, or like, even if you had like people telling you, oh, don't even think about it, don't even talk about it, just because it's not gonna be good for your career. You know, that's kind of like what I would like to know, if like there was
Hmm.
this kind of like barriers pushing you back to not be fully yourself while competing.
Um, I think that I was my biggest barrier, honestly. I was really lucky that I had a very supportive family, and even before, like, and to be honest, I didn't even have to come out to my family. My family like just told me one day that they knew and they loved me, and that was great. And I have to really, I give my mom a lot of credit for that. She handled it so amazingly, because I was, even though I knew my family loved me and I knew that I wasn't going to be kicked out of my house like so many people are, and um, I wasn't going to have any issues with my family. I still was afraid because I still didn't accept myself. Um, and so I was really grateful to my mom for talking to me about it, because I don't know when, and I was 22 when this happened. Um, and I don't know how long it would have taken me to have that conversation
So she
with my
actually
family.
came to you and brought it up.
Yeah, she did. And I'm so grateful for that, because it took a huge weight off of my shoulders. And um, because it's like we always feel like we have to have the talk with our family, and you sit them
Yeah, which
down
is
and you have
not.
to be like, I have something to tell you. And
Yeah,
it's
I
like
never thought about that either. Like my family's been always so accepting as well, and never really had to have such of a talk about
mm,
like, I have something so important to tell you. No,
yeah.
and I feel because but that also depends on your family, and so that's pretty good. It's a positive thing that your family like they fully supported you and even took a step forward to help you. Let's say.
Hmm. They did. They were really, really amazing. And I have so much gratitude for how everything happened in that manner. Um, but yeah, I think just the biggest fear, like as I said earlier, like there was a small part of me that was worried um, about being judged differently, about my fan base, about, not that I ever had any sponsorships, but about sponsorships. Um, uh, Actually,
Just
that's
at
not true.
skating.
I got free boots and free blades, and I am so grateful for those sponsorships because they made such a huge deal. I never got monetary sponsorship, let
Yeah,
me
yeah.
clarify.
But like
Um,
the judging at skating, do
so
you
like
think that will have that
there
you
was
were you
always
thinking of
like,
that?
yeah, there was a bit, there was a small part of my brain that did think that, and that did fear that. And also, just the general population, um, and how I was going to be received and my popularity. And I think another part was that I didn't want to just be like a headline. I didn't want to just be like gay figure skater. Like I wanted to be a headline. Like I it was like I was just born gay, and this is just a part of who I am, a piece of who I am. It is a big piece, but it's a piece of who I am. I wasn't born a skater. I had to work really, 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 really hard to be an athlete. I wasn't naturally athletic. I had to work really hard at it, and I gave everything of myself to be a figure skater and to make an Olympic team. And you know, I wanted that to be my headline. I wanted my work and my passion to be my headline. I didn't want just like my sexuality, that I felt passive at that point in my life was very passive. I wasn't like an active member of the community, and I wasn't, um, obviously wasn't speaking out, and I wasn't doing things to further our community, and to help. Um, and that's fully on me. And but I just like I I had those small things in my head that I didn't want to just be a headline. I didn't want to be a gimmick. Um I didn't want it to affect my skating. But the bigger thing is that all of these things were a factor, but the biggest part was just that I didn't accept myself for who I was. I didn't like myself much. there were a lot of aspects about myself that I didn't like, and it's hard to ask people to accept you when you don't accept yourself. And so I think that's where most of the fear came, was just internalized. um, there were lots of external factors that did weigh in, but most of it was just internalized, and it was internalized fear, and it was just internalized um, fear of myself, and accepting myself, I guess.
It yeah, there's a lot of factors, and as you were saying, the acceptance was probably the biggest one that did not help
Yeah.
your own personal process. And then there is the competition side where you wanted to be at the top and be in the news because of your accomplishments, which is totally fair. It's not that because you're a gay athlete now, everybody has to be saying that to be like famous about it. No, but
Hmm.
it's more about the fact that you as an athlete can help others, and
Hmm.
but especially help yourself. I feel like
Yeah.
it's part of the accepting process, and once you like feel comfortable with yourself, and like there is a moment like in your career where you are just yourself in
Hmm.
all the aspects, and then that's something that everybody's different and we go through different process, and it's a different time. I think the sport world is changing, and there is more athletes as examples, as a role models, and
Hmm.
it's helping as well. I feel
Yeah.
to see someone out there that is successful and has accomplished big goals, and as well is comfortable with himself and to
Hmm.
speak about it and to tell his story, right?
Yeah.
So I think yeah, it's everybody, we have a different story, and it's it is hard. It's like we go through a lot, and even yourself, like it's the pressure being at the top of your country to Olympics, and like you know it's a difficult decision, as you said, because you firstly need to be 100% confident with yourself,
Yeah.
and otherwise where is the point of telling something when you don't even believe, or you don't even like are like comfortable with, when you have to be yourself first.
Hmm.
So yeah, there was some questions here maybe before we finish the chat. um,
I quickly want to say,
yeah,
I
say
think,
something.
um, the biggest reason that I guess I wanted to like say anything or to talk with you is like, it's kind of, I don't know. I finally realized that it's more than just about me. That just like, again, just visibility is so important. And if somebody can connect to my story or see something of themselves in me, like, and that can make a difference and an impact in their life, like that's the importance. And also, just as a community, the more visibility we have, the more normalized that um, we are in society. Then and the more people like meet us and interact with us, the more like. I I think that has such a huge impact. And I think I just like I was just kind of tired of like being selfish and thinking of everything only in terms of myself. And I felt like it was really important to just like to be present for my community and
Yeah,
for
I
other
think it's
people
very brave.
who aren't as privileged as I am and who don't have the same opportunities that I have. And
I think
um,
it's very brave of you, first of all, to be here today, to be supporting your figure skating community, friends, to putting out here your story, because it's going to help other figure skaters, other athletes, and you being part of this, it's already a big contribution. And no matter how, like there's no one is here to judge why you did not come out when you were competing, because there's no such a need, like, but it's about, there is something going on now, things are changing, and you want to be part of it, you want
mhm.
to support it. I think that's the message you want to send.
Yeah, there's power in numbers, and I'm just like adding my number to that piece. Um, but yeah, it just there was a lot of my whole competitive life was like solely centered around me. I only thought about myself and my career, and I really didn't educate myself on the world outside because I didn't have to. And then you step out of that and you kind of join society, and you're like, oh, I have to like be an active member of society, and it's not just about skating and Olympics. And like, there's so much more going on in the world, and I have to like be a part of
That
that,
is
and I have to
actually
accept
true.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. We are like in our own world when we are like at figure skating, competing high level, and yeah, I think it's something that when you grow, you connect, you understand, you feel proud of it, and that's what it's this is all about. Like
Hmm.
accepting yourself, being proud, skating proud, and yeah. So time is really running out, and because we've like chatting so easily and like talking about all this. But if there is something you would like to say, like for me, what I wanted to tell you is like to say is thank you very much because as I said, your story is a big contribution, and I feel so lucky that you are one of the skaters supporting and being active in this community, in this cause. There's a lot of things need to be changed. All that happened recently, with Yaguin, Olympic figure skater, and all this hate and all this drama and all this situation that is unacceptable. And there's a lot of things we need to get together and work
Hmm.
into and help one another and be like an example to other figure skaters, to other athletes that you know um, that they can look up to us.
Hmm.
And if there is something right now that you want to say, like for me already, you being here is the biggest contribution, I would say.
Well, thank you. I just like, when you came to me, I was really excited at what you're trying to do, and what you want to do with this platform, and that you're creating a platform. And I think a lot of people will be really grateful that you created this space. You've created a space for people to tell stories, and to create a community, and to be a part of, even though skating's already such a small, beautiful community. You've really created something where you've created a safe space for people, and you've created a platform where people can express themselves, and be comfortable, and connect to other stories, and see themselves in other people. And I think that's so huge. And just thank you for creating this space, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of it.
Of course, I have a lot of ideas in mind, and we're growing a team, and we want to do more actions. As you said, it's a platform where everyone can come. Stories, this life story is your story, is going to
Mhm.
stay in the Instagram, is going to stay in the social media, and then there is a way to connect with us, with all of us. People can reach, people can learn, can
Mhm.
listen, and it's a place where we all can contribute and be more united than ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I
thank you.
guess
Yeah.
the last thing I want to say is like,
You
just
have one
because it is,
minute.
yeah, I know, just because like it is a skating platform, is that like, um, be yourself and tell your story. We have such a unique opportunity that skating is a sport, but it's also an art. And art is storytelling, and art is truth. And so the my favorite skaters are the ones who are the most honest, and the most open with themselves on the ice. So any skaters watching, like, don't be afraid to be who you are, and don't be afraid to tell your story, because it's going to have the most impact. By putting it's cathartic, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. People get to know you through your art, and they connect with you. And so don't be afraid to share your stories. Don't be afraid to tell the truth in your skating, in your movement, in your music. Just tell your stories. Show us who you are.
That's amazing, Jeremy. I love this last minute. It was like all we needed out of this hour. Okay,
Mwah.
15 seconds. Gonna say goodbye. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Really
thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
Okay,
Bye, Javi.
it's
Thank
very
you.
good to see you. Okay, take care. Bye.